Great, thank you. All right, well, welcome everyone to the Town of Hamilton Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, November 4th. We'll start off as we always do with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Thank you. Okay. We do have a few board openings to advertise, and these are all three very important right now, and really hoping that that people out there can show their interest and become involved. The board and committee openings are the Council on Aging has one opening, the Recreation Committee has an opening, and the Hamilton Historic District Commission has an opening, newly known as the HHDC, so they're not confused with the HDC.
Yes. HDC.
Yes.
And can I just add to that?
Yes,
on the Historic District Commission opening, that would likely be, not set in stone, but it would likely be for an alternate member. If you'll remember, last time you appointed a member, you also voted to appoint an alternate member who is duly certified to be on that committee. She lives in the district. She's got the requisite experience, and she's been serving on the committee as an alternate, and has expressed a willingness to step up. The HHDC will be taking a vote on that at a future meeting, and that would likely become their recommendation to you if that goes through. So this person might not need to jump into the fray right away, but somebody preferably living within the district that has interest or experience in preservation. There are a number of other criteria for that specific board, so.
Excellent. All right.
Should be aware of that.
Thank you for the clarification. Okay, now is the time for public comment for anything that's not on the agenda. If anybody has anything they'd like to say. All right. And next up is the Selectmen and Town Manager reports. Rosemary, would you like to start?
Yep, just have three quick things. That I attended the Town Hall Building Committee meeting last week and just wanted to express my thanks and my enthusiasm for the project, and especially for Mike Toomey, who I think is just a fabulous leader. He's just super. The next thing is that I have a meeting with the seniors on November 15th to talk about issues that seniors are concerned about, and hopefully we'll have a nice meeting. And then just the other thing is the bonfire that we would like to have reinvigorating of the bonfire post-holiday. We had originally talked about maybe January 11th as the date, but I've spoken to our our fire chief, who said that when you have I think you call it a holiday bonfire or something like that. I forget the exact term, but you have to do it within so many days of Christmas, and so we're thinking that Saturday, January 4th, might be a good day.
Great. Exciting.
So that's it. There's a Conservation Commission meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, that I'm hoping to attend. Other than that,
how are your selectmen hours going?
Oh my gosh, yes, that's why I wrote this down here. Sorry. Had a nice chat with one of my neighbors this morning, who was very interested in the new town hall, and we spent an hour talking about the pros and cons of each element, and it was a great conversation. And certainly if anybody else wants to talk about that or anything else, I'm here most Mondays from 10 to 11, and I welcome input from all citizens.
Great. All right. Thank you, Rosie. Sean, do you have anything you want to?
Not too much, really. Just the CPC will be meeting, excuse me, on the 14th, coming up fairly quickly. We'll be reviewing open grants. We have open grant for the town hall, OPM design services, not weed removal program, which really is my favorite one so far. I mean, there's been a lot of favorites there, but For those folks at home or in the audience that don't know what the knotweed removal program is, it's basically an invasive weed that giraffes love to eat. So whatever we collect, we send it to a zoo and they feed the giraffes and other things like that.
Or goats.
Just love
Wow.
that. Or whatever, yeah.
That's great.
Affordable Housing Trust grants, master plan housing element, and the Weaver Pond restoration. We, about maybe 10 years ago, I don't want to say dredged, but we scooped out all the invasive species in Weaver Pond, and it was due for it, so we did, I believe, the first half of it. We're just following up to see if they had hydro-raked the pond or if they were going to in the springtime, and then we have an open grant to the community house still. And then we're going to talk about how town meeting went and the development of our grant letters to the Town Hall Building Committee and the Affordable Housing Trust with the decisions that were made at town meeting. And that's really it. Sorry I was late. I had a Cub Scout meeting where they were interviewing me about my selectman role. So
Oh, wow.
civic duty, I guess. Right?
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Darcy.
Hi, well, let's see. Tomorrow, I'll be attending a COA, Council on Aging dedication for the patio. Our Eagle Scout Trent Blatz. This was his project, and tomorrow at 2 p.m., tomorrow's Wednesday, November 6th, they're going to have a dedication, so I thought that was pretty exciting.
Is it Wednesday or tomorrow?
I'm sorry. Wednesday, November 6th. 2
Wednesday,
p.m.
okay.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Okay.
Let's see, there's also a planning board meeting on Max Shoe, which is located on Willow Street. It's about the apartment complex. That's going to be on the Memorial Room, 7 o'clock, Tuesday, November 5th. So if anybody's interested in that, they should attend and get their views listened to and any of their concerns. And lastly, let's not forget our veterans and the first responders on November 11th, Monday. There's, that's of course Veterans Day, and there will be a breakfast at the Gardner Post on School Street.
Excellent.
Yeah, and that's, I guess that's it.
All right, excellent. Thanks for the reminder. Let's see, I have a few things, and Joe, help me out on the first one. We did have a joint committee meeting with the Hamilton-Wenham School District, the Wenham Board of Selectmen, the Wenham Finance Committee, the Hamilton Board of Selectmen, and the Hamilton.
Representatives from each of these,
Representative.
not
Right,
full
right.
committees, but yeah.
Not full committees, and I had to say, Joe, I don't know what your takeaway was, but I was very encouraged with the new administration at the district. They ran the meeting. I thought did a great job. We're very open to being collaborative throughout the process, transparent throughout the process. I thought, you know, there's some restrictions given our agreement with the district in terms of dates and when things have to be done. And it kind of forces things to be done quicker and with less kind of turnaround time than is ideal. But given that, I thought it was a great meeting. Great, really good first step.
Yeah, I agree. I think they were trying, they've shown a willingness to be much more collaborative and open to input and feedback from the two communities and the boards and the finance committees. Jeff's right. The turnaround time based on when they have to make decisions due to the terms of the agreement make things a little bit difficult for them. It shortens their calendar, which makes it harder for them to get feedback from us. But they definitely involved us earlier this year in an attempt to try to just open those lines of communication earlier. That was specifically a subcommittee meeting of their capital and finance subcommittees. So it was chaired by a school committee member, Jean Lee, who is the chair of that subcommittee. Additionally, they were, in the interest of transparency, they were upfront. They are in a difficult financial position. The outgoing administration, the previous administration, on its way out the door, predicted a $600,000 plus deficit in the current fiscal year, even as it was just getting started. They have already got that down to $300,000 through sound budget management principles and some things that they have put in place to try to keep an eye on things. But new kids coming in and out of the school district all the time. There's really no way for them to predict what will happen between now and the end of the year. So when you consider that they're working with a bottom line budget to solve this year's current fiscal issue, we have to be aware, and they were very clear about this, that becomes part of next year's budget planning process. They don't want to be in the same position, so they have to start with more money
Right.
just to solve this, plus whatever inflation does to the budget process. So, they're being straight and honest with us. Our partners in Wenham are also facing a significant financial challenge this coming year. The Wenham Town Administrator was upfront. He has a $1 million structural deficit in their budget. So it's all gonna be painful. It's all gonna be a little bit difficult, but the superintendent did a great job of kind of establishing the ground rules, things like be hard on the content and soft on the people, and those types of kind of setting the tone for the way we'll work together through the budget process. And I think that's important. People are going to have hard information to discuss, but if we do it in an environment of openness and honesty, we really don't need to be mean-spirited about it. So.
And so was this, if I may ask, was this kind of a precursor meeting to our typical January meeting where they kind of present to us and then they adopt at the next meeting kind of a thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's kind of along those
Yeah,
lines.
okay.
The idea was let's get everybody started talking and understanding what the rules of the road are, and we kind of told them where we stand. I joked that Wenham went first. They had the real bad news. I had less bad news. My news to them was that we're not in the situation Wenham is, but we can forecast coming down the road the next couple of years what's coming and the things that we have to be aware of. The good news is they're trying to pay attention to, sound planning principles. They're putting together a capital improvement plan that's vetted by their new facilities director and
Right.
the new school committee members. So.
Yeah, my hope is that, among many other things for that board, is that we get a real capital plan from them.
Right.
That is forecasted and they tier all
It's-
their different projects.
It's coming, and they've already agreed to plug into our Capcom. So
that was my follow-up
they've
kind of on
already-
that.
they've already- in
was,
fact, I
have
know
they had a meeting
they've
with
already, They've
our
already reached out to, I believe Bob Woodbury is going to be their
liaison or whatever?
liaison. So.
Okay. Good.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
it was
all.
a good meeting.
Progress.
The second thing is Rosemary, thanks for mentioning, and thanks for coming, and I think you were there, Darcy, as well. The Town Hall Building Committee met. It was I guess it was the second meeting since our
Since tell me.
since the town meeting, and basically, the gist of the meeting, or a big part of the meeting, was that the Hamilton Historic District Commission was there, and they had some additional comments to make. So what is going to happen is the architect is going to kind of take the feedback that they got from the Hamilton Historic District Commission, look at the plans that have been developed for option B, which is what the town voted for, and see if they can kind of implement those suggestions into option B, with it being kind of, hopefully in a cost-effective way. So
Say inside and outside options or
inside and outside, yeah. They had some comments about
recommendations, I guess, not options. But.
keeping, I think everything was in track with what they've said before. I think the only thing that maybe kind of new ish was trying to maintain the stage that's upstairs. And knowing that we need that real estate for office space, but at the same time maintaining it. Their whole thing is trying to not take away things that can't be replaced. So, and then maybe reorienting the room up there. The way it was oriented was towards the beautiful windows in the front of the building for the meeting room. Maybe reorienting that so it faces the old stage. So it was kind of,
So kind of,
yes.
There's some things that the architect's going to work on, new ideas to look at. Basically, option B, the terms of it are that kind of price tag with an addition onto the back of the building that will provide the accessibility that we need for the building. And keeping basically most of the programming in the existing footprint. The architects are working on that now. I think that from my discussions with Town Hall Building Committee members, a couple of them anyway, 3 or 4 of them, after that meeting, there's reason to believe that they'll be able to offer most.
Other options, yeah.
Most of what if not all, most of what the Historic District Commission is looking to accomplish there, and, try to pay attention to those things that are important to those folks. And we understand that. If we can do something to protect and preserve the interior of the building that, doesn't drive up the budget and allows us to continue to program the building for future needs, I think that makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
So, and there were other good ideas that came out of some of the feedback that we've heard. They're relooking at the ideas about how to mitigate the moisture presence in the basement. So I think that it's all good news that we're getting additional feedback in. Town Hall Building Committee and the architects are going to assimilate that into the plan and develop the plan further.
I'm kind of sidetracking here, if I may. Have we talked to anybody about making it a green building, or if that's a possibility? I know we had someone on the zoning board, and
Town Hall Building Committee had
his name, but he does a lot of green energy work and stuff like that.
He spent a couple of meetings with the Town Hall Building Committee. He provided them lots of feedback. Our energy manager, Vicky, has been involved and will be more involved at the time when it comes to pick specific
Systems
materials and systems and things like that. So, getting it up to LED level, I'm not sure is feasible or possible.
Right.
The types of elements that you need to do for that kind of level of
It's a different
is,
price point.
Pulling off all the exterior, filling it in to current standards, and then putting it all back.
Right.
So right there, you get the level of work which is going to drive the cost up.
Right.
But certainly everybody's aware that we don't want this building to be as low impact, have the smallest carbon footprint possible, and do so in a way that doesn't kill the budget. So.
Right, yeah, and I guess I'm just thinking cost efficiency too. If we've got a nicely insulated building, we're not going to, we're going to have new systems anyway, so we're going to save on that, but it'd be nice to do what we can.
So there's been a lot of discussion about the type of material to use for insulation, and the Town Hall Building Committee's, kind of got us in a direction on that, so.
Cool, thank you.
Then finally, for what I had was the Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary Committee has been working very hard. And a couple things. One is there's a new president at the seminary, and Scott Sundquist is the new president there. And before I talk about what the subcommittee's done, I just wanted to mention a couple things. David Smith, who's the chair of the subcommittee, actually spoke at the installation of the new president, at the inauguration of the new president. Rosemary, I know you went to the dinner. And
Impressive.
was it really? And so did Russ as well, right? Russ Tanzer from the Affordable Housing Trust attended. So it just goes a long way in terms of building and establishing the relationship that we have with the seminary, which is important. The committee has established 4 basic subgroups that they're meeting with their counterparts. The seminary's identified, just as I need that. Employees at the seminary that are working with the committee here at Town Hall. Let me just get this back up. Here, when that happens. And they, in fact, met today. Okay, here we go. They met today. So there are 4 things that they're kind of working on, and there are subcommittees that are working on each one of these issues. One is for temporary office facilities on the campus while Town Hall is being renovated. It seems all things seem very encouraging. Patrick Reffert and Tim Olson are the committees from our side on meeting with folks on their side to take a look at that a little bit deeper. But it seems very encouraging. The second thing that seems very encouraging is that the feasibility of converting some of the existing underutilized campus housing for 40B Russ Tanzer, who is on the committee as well, is working with Jay Trevern and Merrin Walters up at the seminary on the feasibility of that happening. That actually, the news that Russ has done so far seems pretty encouraging, that there might be some options available there to solve some of our needs in terms of affordable housing. So they've been working hard on that, and we wish them luck and hope that, obviously it's a complicated matter, it's a legal matter, but it, again, looks encouraging. Then the third group is a kind of a cultural volunteerism community exchange. David Smith is working with a couple of the employees up at the seminary in that, and that's just to help kind of engage our community with theirs, understand who, for us to understand who the seminary is and what they're about and what some of the intangible things are that they already provide to the community and some of the things that they can provide in the future. And then finally, a subgroup that David Thompson and Peter Clark are involved with for town infrastructure type things. I don't know, a lot of people probably know this already, but we have our water storage tanks up on top of the hill. So there could be needs to expand that water facility, that storage facility, and also the concept of adding an additional cell tower. The town does own land there, whether it would be on the land on the hill or whether the seminary would work with us to make other land available to add an additional cell tower. So they've been working very hard, and kudos to them, and thank you very much for the work that they're doing. And that's all I had. How about you, Joe?
I got a couple things. Town manager's report is in your packets. It'll be online tomorrow. As usual, I won't go through everything. I'll try to hit some of the high points. I did want to mention that later tonight we'll be talking about budget guidance and the budget calendar. I have already shared draft budget guidance document and draft budget calendar with the Finance and Advisory Committee and received feedback from Mr. Wanger on the budget guidance document. After I've got your feedback this evening or at a point later in the week, I'll assimilate that information together to develop a final document to distribute to department heads. So I wanted to let people know that the town does have a few open positions, and we are aware of it. I know people have been wondering, why don't we have a conservation agent, et cetera, right now. So we currently have part-time positions for conservation agent and a part-time senior services program coordinator for the Council on Aging, which are budgeted in this fiscal year. We also have a part-time community projects coordinator. I mentioned that one specifically and separately because I believe there may be a need to do some reorganizing. I think that we have enough work in other program needs that aren't being met in the town hall that if I can find the resources, well, I've already identified them, but if I can get approval from the Board of Selectmen and the Finance and Advisory Committee to redistribute some resources, we could potentially make that a full-time position and take on things like grants management and community outreach, as well as the work that the former employee in that position had done. He did a great job in a part-time role. I think we have other needs that if I can make that position a full-time position, it would serve the town well, and it would not add to the budget. So that's my goal. My goal in the next couple of months is to finalize that. But we are reviewing the job descriptions this week and hopefully be able to start advertising them. I also want to take a moment to congratulate Fire Lieutenant Robert Wallace. Bob recently completed training to be a certified fire prevention officer through the Massachusetts Fire Academy and has also received a certification as a fire instructor. Congratulations, Bob.
Oh, that's great.
And I want to remind folks to sign up for our Flash Vote community surveys. We're getting there. We don't quite have the 200 people I'm looking for, but I did get permission from the superintendent. She's going to share our Flash Vote cards with the school community.
The district, great.
And hopefully that'll generate the additional people we need to sign up. So I don't want to belabor the point. We have lots of guests here tonight, so.
Okay. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, on to the consent agenda. We have a request for a sign on the Council on Aging signboard, our very fancy signboard. Friends of Cutler consignment sale, Cutler Elementary School, November 5th through the 17th. And then a request for a sign at Patton Park, trail grooming program from the North Shore Nordic Association from December 1st to March 15th. Hard to believe we're already talking about December through March, but anyway.
I move that we approve both requests in the consent agenda.
Second.
Second, okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right. We are on to the agenda itself, and we're going to start off tonight with a presentation of joining CADA with our Executive Director, Felicia Webb. Hi, Felicia.
Felicia did send over documents that I included physically in your packets today. You can look at those either after the meeting or whatever. And State Rep Hill is joining us tonight, too, also in support of this.
In support of this? Great.
It was his idea.
It was his idea?
I gotta give credit where it's due. He heard we were having trouble with transportation, and he said, hey, can we do this? I'm like, yeah, it sounds like a great idea to me. So, thanks.
Listen, we don't need to reinvent the wheel.
How are you?
Go.
Very good.
Good, good to see you.
How are you?
Hi, Brad, and well, thank you.
Good, nice to see you as well.
Nice to see you.
The last one I forgot.
Mr. Hill, your ears must have been ringing. I was talking about you at my Cub Scout meeting tonight, and a lot of the kids knew you, and they were very appreciative of you.
Are they third or fourth graders?
Yeah, yeah,
I visited the State House last year.
yeah.
Oh, so fun.
Yeah,
Nice kids, I like
excellent. All right, Felicia, sorry about that. Brad stole the show again, but anyway.
That's fine with me. Thank you for having me. My name is Felicia. I'm the administrator of the Cape Ann Transportation Authority. The Cape Ann Transportation Authority, just for background, we were established under Mass General Law 161B. We're composed of Gloucester, Rockport, Ipswich, and Essex. The last community to join CADA was Essex, and that was in the early 80s. So this discussion is new for CADA.
Wow.
We have an advisory board. The advisory board is made up of our communities. So we have Gloucester, Rockport, Ipswich, Essex, the mayor, designee, town manager, or designee, town administrator. And the advisory board kind of guides CADA and appoints the administrator, and that's who I am.
Okay.
We're funded through a combination of state and local funding, as well as our own source. Our transit budget for this year is about $3 million. In addition to the public transportation services that we offer, we also contract with the HST office, Human Service Transportation Office, and we provide mass health transportation for PT1 customers. They have DDS and EIP, which is early intervention babies. That program is about $16 million worth of revenue that comes through CADA, and it flows back out to private providers. So in addition to the bus, we also have this huge contract that most people don't even know about. The conversation with Hamilton started this summer when Brad Hill invited me to come meet Joe and talk about transportation options in Hamilton. We have a very successful program in Ipswich that we started a couple of years ago, and we use the cherry sheet funding on the local assessments. Not every community, but communities that are members of the MBTA have an assessment. Hamilton's assessment is about $180,000 for fiscal '20. Communities have the option to join an RTA, such as CADA. You can use that $180,000 to pay for local transit service through CADA or another RTA. Right now, that $180 goes to the MBTA, and Hamilton doesn't see something from it.
Right.
With the local assessment, you have the option, you can join CADA, use a part of that money to provide local bus service, and then the rest of it still goes to the T.
complicated.
Yes, it is.
The bus service that we started in Ipswich started in 2016. We used the $50,000 that they had left over. We developed a schedule with the Council on Aging, and it started, we were gonna provide service 2 or 3 days a week. that was not working the best for us. So we provide service 5 days a week to Gloucester, Beverly, Peabody, Danvers, and into Wyndham. The town is happy with it. Brad is happy with it. And it works for CADA. If Hamilton were to join CADA, the service that we would provide to you would be a discussion between, what does Hamilton need and how can CADA fit that need? So if it's out-of-town medical, in-town medical, shopping trips, we provide shopping trips for, Gloucester, Rockport, and Ipswich. The town decides what they need, and CADA fulfills that need to the best of our ability. So like seniors? Mm-hmm, seniors, people with disabilities. If the town wanted to be a little bit more flexible, you can open it up to additional people besides those.
So if I could just offer.
So what started this is, over in Ipswich, we had a need because there were a lot of senior citizens who couldn't get from their houses to their doctor's appointments
Right.
outside of Ipswich.
Yep.
And what we do in Ipswich, before CADA was involved, is everything we did was based on volunteers. And if you notice the sheet that I gave you, back in 2016, there was 420 requests for people who needed help getting to a doctor's appointment outside. And the volunteers provided 380 of those rides. Well, what we're seeing happen now is many of the volunteers that we had either have moved, and I'm trying to be as kind as I can, were much older in age and couldn't do it anymore. And we started seeing a bigger need of getting those people from point A to point B. We had through CADA, done a service on the weekends that was paid the same way as we are doing in Ipswich, which was through the assessment, and that's the CADA bus that takes you from downtown to Cranes Beach, or takes you to the apple orchard. And it actually used to go to Essex, but there wasn't a lot of ridership there. But CADA has taken care of that need through the assessment. And there was extra dollars available, and when this need came to be that we needed to get folks from point A to point B, we reached out to CADA and we started this pilot program 2 years ago. And you'll see on your sheet, the rides have continued to be requested up to 609 people in FY19. And you'll notice now that CADA takes care of 220 of those rides for us, and 257 still are through volunteers. So it's a combination of the two, but it's a need that's real. And so as we're going through the Ipswich issue, we're starting to see over in Hamilton, through Facebook postings and other means of getting the word out to us elected officials, that they have the same problem here in Hamilton. And it seems, if I can be blunt, it seems to be a little worse here in Hamilton, because I don't think you have the volunteer force that we have in Ipswich. So when we heard that that issue was taking place, that's when we all reached out to Joe and said, just hear what's going on in Ipswich, because I never knew that you could take the assessment and put it toward an RTA, Regional Transport Authority, to pay for services that we needed. This is trying to replicate the ride that the MBTA offers. And many, many years ago, and we're not going to get into the history of why we're not part of the ride or not, that was a decision that was made way before any of us got involved in politics. But the RTA, and specifically CADA, has really stepped up and helped us and other communities with this need. So that's why I'm involved in this, is just trying to connect everybody in Hamilton with CADA. But it's going to be your decision whether you want to do that or not, because you are going to have to join. That is going to take a town meeting vote to do that.
No.
Oh, excuse me.
Nope.
Doesn't.
It's a
This
stop.
board gets to vote.
Even better.
Already researched it with KP Law, we're good.
But there must be some questions that you have
Yes.
of us.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, are there any downsides to doing this?
For us, there has not been. And that's because the assessment pays for it.
Why we switched that cherry sheet money to CADA instead of MBTA, and it
You switch a portion of it.
It's a portion
So,
of it,
yeah,
right?
we decide.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Yeah, the schedule is whatever, this is how much it's gonna cost.
Right.
You guys keep that remainder going to the MBTA as a bank.
Right.
Right.
Can you explain to them, if I know the program as well as I think I do, we get the calls through the COA and then they come to you, or do you take the calls
That's
now?
how Ipswich has it structured. They continue to take all the reservations, and then the rides that CADA can provide, they send to CADA, and then they use their volunteers for early morning rides, farther out of town to Burlington, Bedford rides, so that they utilize CADA as much as they can.
Gotcha.
And can you talk about where we bring them? Because that's important.
We take them to Beverly, Peabody, Danvers,
Great.
Wyndham, Gordon College. We take them into Gloucester. We have a shopping trip on Friday that we actually take them up to Rowley, the Market Basket. That's a little separate from the medical bus, but we do provide that service for the residents as well.
But you'll see it's quite a few hospitals and doctors.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was
it
a,
started like 4 or 5, and then suddenly it's, add 1 and then add 2, and it's like, well, this one's just right around the
Right.
corner. If we're going there, we might as well just stop and let the person off, because it is a service that these people, or the customers, may not be able to get there unless they get on the CADA bus and CADA takes them.
right, and that was part of our issue in town. We lost that big circle. We got a very small circle, so now we're trying to expand it again for our seniors.
If I could say, yeah, one of the great things is that you service Peabody and Danvers, and those were two of the towns that we lost when
Right.
when our service was amended. So that was one of the things that attracted me, so.
Right. So I have a couple of questions. So these are the very issues that seniors have been scheduling meetings about with me, and I'm very committed to our senior population. I have a couple of questions. Will this CADA be able to go to Salem, to sort of North Shore Medical Center? That's where, is the Mass General group is in Peabody and Danvers, and when they have imaging or minor procedures, the hospital would be North Shore Medical Center, which of course is Salem.
If that is a location that people need to travel to, yes,
Okay.
CADA can go to Salem.
Okay.
We're not restricted on where we travel.
Good,
It's
okay.
based on where the customer needs to go.
Super, okay. And then
Can
you,
we just be clear? You're going to put the program together.
Right, the
Right.
program hasn't been determined yet.
Okay.
This is just their mentioned communities that they currently serve in their current
sure,
arrangement.
sure, just
Right, we would have
inform-
to work on the details on what our network will be, what our costs will be, how many days we'll be doing it, all that kind of stuff, right? So all the kind of
Yep, and CADA will
logistics
work
of
with
it.
you guys.
Over
And help
time,
figure that
say,
out.
Yeah.
Perfect.
so if we wanted to add another community, would there be a time to do that? Say 3 years goes by and we decide that there's another community that they need to go to? Is there an opening, or is it like once a year you get to add or
Right, is it a
subtract
year
a
contract, a
community? or-
3-year contract? How does it work with CADA?
Once you join CADA, you're a member of
Your
CADA.
perpetuity.
And you renegotiate, I would think, as the needs arise. If somebody needed to
If
go to
someone-
Salem,
yeah.
right, right.
The program,
It's
yes,
not as
CADA, no.
Yeah, the
Gotcha.
service could evolve over time.
Once a
Right,
year,
okay.
we look at where we're going. With Ipswich, it kind of happens,
When it happens.
yeah, someone, we get our
Spontaneous.
first
Right.
dialysis customer, well, now they're gonna be going to dialysis, they pick
Right.
them up and take them home.
Yep.
So if we get somebody who, needs to go to a place that's not on our list, we sit down and figure it out, okay, yeah, we'll take that person there, and it just becomes part of what we do.
Good. Yeah, okay, so in a few other questions, you will provide services for handicapped as well, for medical and non-medical appointments, the same
We can
thing?
do that. All the vehicles are lift equipped, so they're all
Super,
accessible to.
super, okay, super.
um,
And it's
those
door to door, it's not, you go to the bus stop, is that correct?
Correct, we come to your home and we
Okay,
take you
super,
to the
super.
exterior door of where
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
going.
okay. And then, how far in advance do people need to schedule? Or you just said that you have sort of prearranged trips for shopping and things like that, which I think is super.
Yeah, I like to do group trips for shopping, so,
Yeah, yes, of course.
Friday morning, these times, we're gonna pick you up,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
going to the market basket, we'll pick you up, take you
That's
back
great.
home. For medical trips, we do 2 days ahead of time. So if you're going Monday, we'd like to know Thursday by 3 o'clock.
Okay, and since you have a smaller clientele than, say, the ride, I'm going to guess, I'm a nurse. One of my lives, I'm a nurse at Mass General, and I understand the frustration of people waiting, ill people who are ill-prepared to wait for a number of hours. Since you're a smaller service, I would hope and anticipate that you wouldn't have an inordinate wait time. I mean, certainly emergencies do arise, but I'm just sort of asking because I know that the seniors will ask me this question.
Not that I'm aware of. There's 2 ways to book a return trip. You can book a time with us, which I know is hard because you're going to a medical appointment,
Or call.
or you call. If you want to call, you're kind of rolling the dice that you may be waiting a little longer.
Right.
Whereas if you think you're going to be done at 11, go
Right,
ahead and give us 11:30.
right.
That way you may wait a half hour.
Right.
But you're waiting for the bus to come to you, not
Right.
for, you to call and then
Right.
find the bus and then the bus comes.
Yeah, I've seen it both ways, and it's
Yep.
it's frustrating. But again, I think the transportation systems in the city are much larger, and they don't have maybe the intimate sized population that
They're
you
not
would have.
correct, they're not quite as CADA is.
Right, exactly. And then I just just ballpark figure, what's the population in Ipswich, Brad? You probably know.
Just
Just on 14,000.
14,000, okay. Yeah, so this is really exciting. I think it sounds like a wonderful opportunity. It's been one of my goals to help the seniors as much as possible, and I think, Brad, thank you for introducing this idea, and I think it sounds super.
I just have kind of a future casting kind of, I'm thinking of bandwidth of your service. Hamilton's coming on, Ipswich came on recently. Do you have kind of a growth plan if other communities are coming on so that you can maintain the same level services that you are now for Ipswich and other communities that you would be able to provide for Hamilton, since we're kind of signing up in perpetuity?
Vehicle-wise, yes, we're fine vehicle-wise. We actually get our smaller dial-a-ride buses through state grants. I have enough to probably add 2 or 3 vehicles on the road on a regular basis. When a new community comes on, there is that little bit of lag time, which allows the operating company, because we actually contract the service to a private company, they can start to prepare, hire and train a new driver, rebid whatever schedules they have to rebid.
Gotcha. Okay, great.
I'd like to address this issue, Duke Seeper, Essex Street. Just last week, I went over to DDS, and for the last 10 years or so, I've been driving my daughter to and from work 1 day a week. And she said to get in touch with CATA, which I did. They don't do Hamilton.
Not yet.
Right. So I hope you pass this, because I'm going to need it.
I think a lot of people do, Duke, and I'm very, very sensitive to that, and I think certainly we all are. So we are absolutely doing what we can to improve transportation and therefore the quality of life for our seniors. So don't worry.
This is my daughter. She is 50 or 51 now. So maybe I ought to drop the age to be a senior.
Well, handicapped at
Yeah.
any age, right?
Yeah.
And just to let the board know, moving forward, and I know this is a discussion about CADA today, but we've also reached out to Lyft and to Uber, who up till now have not been very responsive in trying to offer discounts to seniors because the financial plan doesn't allow them to do it.
Oh.
However, I've heard in the past week or two that they now are partnering with different towns and organizations to try and do something like that. You may know that the Baker administration has actually contracted with Uber and Lyft because the ride, to be honest with you, is losing money. And we can't continue to keep going the road we're going down
Right.
in terms of cost for the ride. So he has been looking and reaching out to Uber and Lyft, and I believe there is something in place for the city of Boston, if I'm not mistaken. But moving forward, I just heard that they now are looking at other ways to try and help our seniors as well. So the conversation has been taking place, and we are hearing it loud and clear, and we're trying to address it
It's
in the
good,
best
yeah.
ways we can. But locally, Cater is the
Good
best
plan, right.
way for now.
So, and Brad, maybe we could talk about this again, but we've been trying to think about how to build up a volunteer group to help with rides. And I know I started to think about this, talking about the potential for Gordon Conwell. Some of the students and staff there want to be involved in providing community services, and I can't think of a nicer and more necessary thing to do than help provide some transportation for our seniors. And maybe you will have other ideas as well.
I'm sure every legislator is going to say what I am about to say,
Right.
but I have some of the best council on agings in my district, and that's a true fact. And what I would offer, as we did with this conversation, is maybe a subcommittee of some sort can meet with the directors of a Manchester by the Sea or an Ipswich, Topsfield for sure, where they have a big population
Yeah.
of volunteers, and find out what they do and how they do it.
Right.
Because, if I was sitting on your side, I'd be asking, but what about insurance and things of that sort? So there must be some program put into place that they are covered,
Right.
if you will,
Yeah.
should something happen. But I would recommend you sit down with
That's a
one of
great
those
idea,
three.
yeah.
We deal with Sheila Taylor over in Ipswich all the time.
Yeah.
And again, it's my biggest town in my district, and it's my biggest council on aging. So they handle this very, very well.
Right.
Actually award-winning, I think, on
So-
a couple of occasions.
So I have a lot of work to do before I meet with the seniors in about 10 days, so it all sounds great.
We would be more than happy to sit down and call for you and set those meetings up. They're very good
Thank
people.
you. That's
run the
that's
program.
just super. Thank you very much.
This is
Appreciate
yours, by the way. I don't want to put down anybody. So I think, unless there's questions about how CADA,
And so maybe just next steps, because I think, I hope I'm not speaking for everybody, I would think it's something we're definitely interested in continuing to look into and
Yeah.
put some kind of a contract proposal, whatever the
We
allocated
don't
amount
need
is.
We don't need a contract proposal. What needs to happen on your end is a vote of the Board of Selectmen to join CADA, and we need to do it before their next board meeting, which is the first Monday in December. December 4th, so it's just
So we
a
have
month from today.
maybe one more.
So you can either vote tonight or you can vote in 2 weeks. Because you missed that, then we'll talk in January at the earliest, so.
And so just let me kind of future cast here in my, I guess, out loud. So say if we vote tonight to join CADA, then the next part is kind of figuring out the devil in the details with the service and the time and what we will allocate from the cherry sheet from MBTA to give to CADA.
Well, yeah, well, I'll be responsible for
Right.
making sure we work that out with CADA. And CADA actually submits the paperwork to have the assessment changed, the split changed. So, but we
Do we
need
need
to
to
sit down and
also-
figure out the
So there's
level
a
of service.
process in place
Oh,
already.
Yeah, and there's a process in place already to handle that end of it. And on our end, we need to have a group. I would, picking up on what the representative said, I'd say I'd probably look to the Council on Aging to provide a couple people to work with me to kind of, work with me and Mary Beth to kind of figure out what the service should look like, to talk to CADA and kind of figure out how best to manage it, so.
Should we also vote tonight or in the near future to make you the authority for CADA decisions?
I think next meeting, I would like just a little time, just
Yeah, I'm okay with
ask a
that.
few
I'm
more
fine with that.
questions.
I mean, I think it's something we're all gonna
Oh,
probably
yeah.
say
I
yes
think so,
to, but I
too.
think one more meeting would
Yeah,
be
I think
fine to
that makes
digest stuff
sense.
and get some questions answered if we need any. What's the timeline, say you have your meeting in December, we've made our decision, we've joined, we've worked on some details, when will we have CADA providing service for us?
Well, when Felicia and I first met back in August, we were hoping maybe to be able to start in like January, February, something like that. So as quickly as
So,
possible afterwards, but we do need.
Late winter,
There
early
is the
spring,
work
maybe.
and, the work on our end as far as determining what the level of service needs to be, how many days a week it runs, how it runs, things like that. But
When we set Ipswich up, I had a conversation with Brad in March, and Ipswich started August 1st.
So pretty quick turnaround there.
Okay.
One question that wasn't asked tonight, so if I was on your side, I'd be asking it. What is the cost to the senior who's getting the service? So when they get picked up, like, isn't there a cost sharing?
There is.
Sliding scale.
Currently, what CADA does, it's $5 round trip out of town.
That's way better than Uber and Lyft.
I'll beat it, no.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cheaper than gas.
Unbelievable. That's wonderful. I'm sorry.
right.
And what we have a pass program that we started in Ipswich where we sell a bus pass that allows you 6 rides. So it's $25, so it's take 5, you get your 6
Charlie
rides for
Carter
free.
kind of a thing, or whatever.
Okay.
you can-
Kinda, a
not-
little
yeah,
bit more rudimentary,
Right.
it's a punch pass.
Right, a punch pass,
but
there you go, punch card.
Kind of the same thing,
good.
it's a bus pass, and you get that extra ride for free.
And
$5 include for volunteer drivers?
The $5 is just for the CADA bus.
for whatever Katie does, right?
Yep.
The answer is no, I think.
I don't know if they,
Volunteers, you don't have to pay.
That's,
Okay.
you're accurate.
Yeah, correct, Duke.
But the bus and so forth. I have a couple of other questions, and you may have said this and I may have missed it, but our MBTA assessment is about $185,000. So how much will this cost Hamilton? Do you have a ballpark figure for the year?
the service that we started in Ipswich is about 50,000.
Okay, so, okay, now, and I'll just play devil's advocate here. Is the MBTA going to punish us somehow?
No, the
Okay.
MBTA will not do anything to
Okay.
Hamilton. You won't lose any service. The train comes through Hamilton. The 50,000 or whatever part of that assessment that is taken and given to CADA, that is reassessed on the 14 or 15 core MBTA communities, which is Boston, Brookline, like the inner.
So the
I almost
communities that
call it the
actually
inner
get service
city,
from the MBTA.
But the people that actually get real MBTA service,
Right.
it's reassessed onto those communities.
So, just to continue on that question for just a minute, what would we do, Hamilton's MBTA assessment is $185,000. What would happen to that money if we didn't go with CADA?
It continues
goes
to
to
go to the
MBTA.
MBTA.
Just keeps going to
I'm
MBTA.
sorry?
It just keeps going to the MBTA?
Okay, so we pay that to the MBTA?
Correct, no matter
Okay,
what.
okay. And so, the I'm just worried, I'm also a commuter. I think about right now, our commuter, rail station is very nicely upcapped. It's, there's always ice melt, and it's clean, and things like that. It's well lit. And so I'm wondering, so you're telling me that it would not impact
No.
that service at all?
No, it won't have a derogatory effect for you guys taking part of that assessment, using it locally. The MBTA will not. Punish
We've been taking
Hamilton.
from the assessment in Ipswich for 10 years, with the
Okay.
K-Bus, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never had an
You have a nice
Yeah.
tea station there, too.
Yeah, and we have an MTA rep for the MTA board in town that,
We do?
yeah, and that when, let's see, 3 years ago, so they were gonna change the schedule, was that about it? And they were gonna basically cut out a lot of this, almost half the service in the Hamilton when changing times and stuff like that, and we pushed back on them.
Right.
And a few other communities did and said, listen, we need those commuter times, because it was gonna mess up a lot of things for a lot of commuters, so we gave them some pushback and they,
Control board's gonna be voting, if it didn't today, they're gonna be voting to try and bring us more service.
yeah.
That's great.
Good,
This has nothing to do with that, Rose.
yeah.
And, you
Right.
know, in terms of, I'd just like, you know, recast, you said what would happen with Hamilton's money. It's essentially, it's not ours anyway. It's on the cherry sheet to start,
Right.
but it's an assessment that comes off before we ever get the
Right.
state money. So it's the MBTA's money right now as it is.
Right.
Right.
But
It's
it's
a-
specifically set in state law to be there to help provide for public transportation, which, in my opinion, is justly provided by the state. in
Right.
regional services,
Right.
not by local communities.
Right.
So I think that we're in a good way to say that, yes, great, the MBTA serves our community needs very well. We're happy to have them continue to take a piece of that assessment, but we have other more local needs that can be better met by this Regional Transit Authority, and we'd like to join them so that we can have those needs met.
And again, just to have all the questions answered, you're in a small geographical area. I'm wondering why you haven't expanded. I mean, it sounds wonderful, so I'll ask you the hard question. Why has it taken 30 some odd years to, you said Essex, or was it Ipswich or
Yeah,
Essex was your
the last
newest?
one to
Yeah.
join in the
So
early 80s.
just wondering, because it sounds great, and I'm just wondering.
Good question.
I'm trying to phrase it correctly when I answer it. CADA has had people that have since left. CADA has had some turnover in the past year and a half. The people that have departed were at CADA for 20, 25, 30 years. I don't think expanding into communities was maybe not their priority or high on their priority list. I'm still new, if you haven't figured that out.
You're doing great.
Thanks. And I think that, CADA is here to provide service to our communities. You guys are not a CADA community, you're interested in CADA, we can provide a service to you, so we might as well work together to provide the service to the community and the people that actually live in it. That's my view of CADA's role on the North Shore. Other people had or have different ideas.
So, okay, so for whatever reason, there wasn't a big push to expand, and now you're seeing the value and the necessity, certainly.
Yeah, and we also have vocal supporters.
Right.
Brad Hill sells CADA. So it's a change in philosophy, a change in personnel.
Sure.
Yeah.
But also, we didn't know you could take the assessment from the
Right.
MBTA
That's the
and
that's
put it
the
into an RTA
Yeah.
for different programs.
right.
We only learned of this 10 years ago.
Right. That's the real thing. That's the litmus
It's like
that
our
started
tax
this
dollars
whole.
coming
So
back
Yeah,
what-
and
to service.
Once we found out, we
Yeah.
took full advantage of that, and now we use it for two services, the CADA bus in the summer, and the getting people from A to B on medical appointments.
Okay.
And the cherry sheet local assessment, it's still not very well advertised. you
Right.
know.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you coming from kind of one central location, or do you have different hubs, or
Right now, we're in
transportation spots?
Gloucester on Eastern Avenue. That's our
I
garage.
think I've actually seen your buses there. Yeah, yeah, I've seen you there. Yeah.
Not be impulsive. I'm sorry.
DDS is not. Hamilton was not included. They said I could go there. When I went there with all the paperwork, and they said not Hamilton. So there is a vote yes, please.
Yes,
Well, I was going to say, I'm ready to vote, but is anybody, is,
I'm ready to vote. I think it'd be great, Darcy. Yeah. Love to
May
hear
I
a
make a
motion.
motion?
I think that'd be great.
I would like to vote on the, let's see, how shall I word this? Joining CADA. Joining CADA.
With the town manager negotiating the details of the
Yes,
agreement.
with our town
So-
manager negotiating the
You can say
agreement.
you can
With a
give Joe the
subcommittee,
authority.
perhaps,
And-
to,
Okay.
Well, I won't do it in a vacuum. I don't, it's not my style anyway.
Joe knows that.
So,
Can I ask a quick question before you finish your motion? Is that all right? I just
Well,
want
yeah,
to.
because we're gonna have discussion after
Yeah,
you
no, go
seconded it.
ahead. Go ahead. I'll let you finish, then I'll.
okay, I would like to make a motion that we join CADA, knowing that Joe or his designee will be acting on our behalf with CADA, and that we will probably be thinking about having a subcommittee that would be working with the people at CADA.
Second.
Great, second, great. Further discussion.
Brad, is CADA our, I mean, not saying that it's bad that they may be our only option, but is it our really only option for this kind of a service and this kind of a,
The other, please correct me if I'm wrong, the other closest RTA to you would be Merrimack Valley.
okay.
A lot further away.
A lot further away.
Yeah,
All right.
so-
I just didn't know if there were other kind of players in the game for
Yeah.
us and to
Those would
do
be
the same
two
thing
We're-
with a cherry sheet. Okay.
And
Good question.
quite rightfully, part of the reason we're in this position of not really having a lot of service is the size of our population. But it's
Right.
also that we're kind of a little bit in a no man's
We're
land.
geographically,
The edge
yeah.
of their RTA, and we're at the edge of the MBTA's district, so
Right.
it kind of leaves us in a little bit of a no man's land, so.
And just to be clear, we've reached out to the MBTA and said, would you offer these services the ride? And they emphatically
Said no.
Right.
They're not,
Stop it
they're not in a
now.
position to be adding
They stopped
service. They're,
Because I believe it stops at,
Stops in
300
Wenham.
Main, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion?
Well, to be honest, I wanted more time just to think about it, not that I see any downside to doing it. I'm just a little hesitant, not because I think it's a bad service at all, but just because I'm just learning about the details and very happily so. But I will concur with my comrades here.
And you,
Boy,
and you can
Brad
put
here,
Brad
we
on
have
speed
Felicia
dial.
here.
if you-
Yes, that's right, Brad. Actually, I do
Yeah.
have him on speed dial.
don't worry, they will.
Okay,
All right.
so here we go.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, excellent. Thank you so much,
Thank you very much.
Felicia,
Everybody.
Oh, look forward to
for all your help. Thank you, Brad.
Yeah, looking forward to working with you.
It is, it's very exciting.
Brad, I'm glad you dressed for the occasion.
I just came from basketball.
I was gonna say, you must have just been coaching her basketball.
I love it. Coming from basketball.
Thank you so
You're welcome.
much for coming, appreciate
You're
it,
welcome.
and look forward
Thanks,
to your
Brad.
help.
You're welcome. Thank you
Appreciate
all
it.
Thanks, Brad.
for letting me come like this.
Love it.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, see you
I'll talk
soon.
to
He's a working state rep.
That's right,
Yeah.
that's right.
Good night, Felicia.
Bye-bye,
Thank you.
bye, Felicity, thank you.
Okay, next up is appoint Laura Walsh to the planning board per Mass General Laws.
Sorry.
Thank you for coming. Would you like to introduce yourself? Say hello? Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Walsh. I'm currently an associate member on the planning board, and I have been so for about a year. And they have nominated me to be a full-time member, and that is why I'm here.
That's great.
If you'll recall, you recently adopted a new policy for appointing members to boards and committees that you have the authority to appoint. That is just for those committees that you have the sole authority to appoint. You have joint authority with the planning board. There's already an established procedure in Mass General Law. The procedure is for you, both boards, to vote on. Planning board, because Laura's already been an associate member and has been present at meetings and is aware of the workload, the planning board has voted to appoint Laura to fill a vacancy, and they asked if you would concur.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions? Yes?
Of course I do. Hi, Laura,
Hi.
I'm Rosie. Thank you for your commitment to the planning board. I have a question. Have you, do you have an interest in conservation projects or development, or just wonder what your background is and your interest?
Yes. So my background, what I do for work outside of the planning board is I manage corporate real estate for a tech company. So I manage all of their office space, and I am an interior designer by trade, but I worked at an architecture firm for 6 years. So I would say my interest is more on the development side. As I've been on the planning board, I have developed an interest in the affordable housing and different ways that we can solve some of the housing issues. So I recently worked with Rick putting together the whole presentation that he gave at the last meeting, and on the master plan and what was put together by the consultants. So that was interesting, and that's my interest and background.
Do you have any feelings about a balance of conservation and development, looking at the type of town that Hamilton is? I think that's important.
Yeah.
Planning doesn't just mean development, it
Yeah.
means preservation, conservation, environmental concerns
Absolutely.
also.
I think, and many of the planning board members and I are always trying to balance the amount of preservation we can do and still keep the character of the town. That's extremely important because most people live here because there's so much open space and the character of it and all that. On the other hand, we've seen through the surveys the need for more types of housing and affordable housing to allow people who already live here to keep living here, and as things change, be able to provide for those needs. So I think I always look at things in a very balanced way, looking at both sides. That's for sure.
Great.
Are you a
Thank you.
long-term member of the community?
So I've lived here for about 7 years. Yep. So I have 2 kids that go to, one's at Cutler, one will be at Cutler next year, and we've lived here for 6 years. Or 7, I said. I always go to my oldest one's turning 8, and we moved here when she was 1.
Subtract
So
one.
exactly.
Whose seat is she filling? Whose seat is-
Janelle Curry was
Oh, that's right,
on the
Janelle's.
board, and she has resigned because she's moving and taking a new opportunity.
And when is Janelle up for, or would she be up for re-election? So we're appointing.
I think this appointment would only go to the next election anyway. I believe this appointment under state law only goes to, because it's an elected board, and
Right.
this is an appointment, it only goes to the next election anyway. So this would be till April, and she'd have the ability to run for the remainder of the term.
So my kind of follow-up to you is,
Yep.
coming up in the next month or so, there's nomination papers and stuff like that. So will you
Yes.
be running for your seat, basically?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
And there's some members of the planning board who have said, we'll help you through the paperwork. It's not a big deal. So yeah, I'm under that impression that I'll run in the spring.
Great, that's perfect.
Excellent. All right. Any other further questions?
No?
All right.
Do we make a motion yet?
No, that would be great.
I move to appoint Laura Walsh to the planning board per Mass General Law.
Second. Can I-
Oh, so now we can have some more discussion?
Yeah, we
You
can have
have to
more.
second it, yeah.
Yeah.
Second.
Oh, I thought
Oh.
you were seconding.
No.
Oh, I'm
Asking for a
sorry.
Asking for a second.
I'm sorry. Second.
All right, thank you.
And now we can go into discussion.
Further discussion? Yes.
Yeah. I think a lot of us in Hamilton are concerned about the planning board being so aggressive in these high-density projects that for the last 5 years they've been bringing to the community at town meeting, and consistently not being accepted by the townspeople. What do you think you can do so that these plans are acceptable
Yeah.
to the majority of the town?
Right, so we're not putting something out there that's causing
Because
just a
that's
lot
been
of
going
stress.
on for like the last 5 or 6 years, and I'm sure it's frustrating for the planning board, but it's also takes a toll on the people,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
So my opinion is we've done, in this past year that I've been on the planning board, done a lot of polling and meetings within the master plan review. And we had this last town meeting, I mentioned I put together the presentation that Rick Mitchell delivered to try to get some feedback. And like the key is to get feedback and see what people are interested in. I think the challenge is there hasn't been a ton of feedback given to give the planning board some direction on what we should put forward. But there has been discussion in the planning board not to fall into that same trap of spinning wheels and saying this is the perfect solution for everyone. So I think the challenge is to get more feedback and maybe put something out there that is more conservative that would be accepted rather than trying to force something that is a waste of time. But
Right.
I think the challenge is getting that feedback early on because we put out surveys and had all these meetings and there's, maybe 200 to 300 people and then something gets put forward and there's many more people that show up like, hey, I didn't realize. So I think it's a work in progress, but my agenda wouldn't be to go and put something forward that's not going to be
And
approved.
what is your position on, say, opening up the Chabaco land for future development or industrial, zoning it so that we can actually have a commercial tax base so that we're not constantly looking for revenue
Yes.
in strange places, like housing.
I think I remember from the town meeting you were asking some questions about this. So I think it's a great idea. I think that Patrick has looked into this more, and potentially one other planning board member, and I would have to get more in the details of what is actually possible, because I think there's some restrictions in there, but I think in principle it's a great idea, because it's kind of like something sitting out there that can create some revenue without
Source,
yeah,
yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think we should, as a board, be looking into all of that and then putting clear communication of what's possible and not, so at least people can understand
Yes,
if we can't
yeah.
put something forward, right?
So I think just to piggyback on your first comment, Darcy, so, you talk about the surveys that you put out for the housing production plan. Two things that come to mind are the town survey, which certainly gave a very strong opinion about what people want and don't want in town. And I wonder if the planning board refers to that in any of its discussions. And I guess that's the most important one. And then secondly, learning from the fact that so many of the proposals from the planning board have been soundly defeated at town meeting. So I just wonder, is the planning board, are you as a planning board member hearing that development is fine, but the type and the amount of development is important to people
Yeah.
in this town? And while I certainly don't see 6 applicants here for this position, I'm very glad that you're presenting yourself and that you're interested. But as a selectman who talks to lots of people in this town, I would hope that you would hear those very clear messages of defeating high density and the town survey's opinion on the fact that they want to keep this town a small town, and that they want the village area to maintain a small village feel.
Yeah.
Does that sound within your
So I
interest?
have heard that. I think that the discussion I've heard on the planning board is that a lot of things that they've put forward have been put down, and that they don't want to continue that pattern. And it's a waste of everyone's time, frankly, to put together things that won't be acceptable. So I think there is focus on what people want and trying to get more feedback. And the town survey is one of
Well, the
those.
feedback has
Yeah.
been there, sort
Yeah.
of my point I'm trying
Yeah.
to
Well, I think-
politely make. It
Yeah.
has been there, and it is there, and we all do live here because we feel this is a very unique, very special town, and it could be gone like that.
Yeah,
if-
yeah.
if-
I don't think anyone wants that, especially me. That's for sure. So
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think the point is definitely clear to me, and one of the reasons that I like living here. I grew up in a very rural area outside of Massachusetts, and so that's one of the things that does appeal to me for sure.
Great.
So
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. So all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, terrific.
thank you.
Thank you so much for
you.
coming out. Thank you for volunteering and doing this. All right. Okay, next up is the bond authorization.
Okay, if I could just set the stage a little, we have Peggy,
Sure.
Peggy McLaughlin. Peggy McLaughlin, our treasure collector. This will be her first time doing this with us. These bonds are,
Yes.
you'll have your chance to ask questions, of course, but obviously, most of this bond offering is to fund the things the town meeting has recently voted in favor of, particularly the water treatment plant, the water distribution system, Chabaco Road are the 3 main things. The bond offering, I'll let Peggy tell the story because it went real well.
We had 9 bids, which I guess is very good, and we did well. We got a 2.02 interest rate.
That's great.
Wow.
Yeah,
So it's even less than the 2.03 on the sheet?
it's .0, I thought it was .02.
0.03.
Oh,
0.036, sorry. Yeah.
Still good.
Yes,
Yeah.
Good.
sorry.
It's really good.
Yeah.
So this was the little thing, the
Thank
bond,
you.
those were all the people that bid it, put a bid in on our bond. And then we also did the standard and poor, which was back, and the town kept its AAA rating.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, that's
That's
great.
Yeah. So I'm not sure who the clerk is.
It's, Darcy.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
okay,
Oh, you mean
that's-
of this board, yes.
Yes,
Me.
so this, for the bonds, you have to vote in, and then they are signed.
Okay.
Some people say they just, say they, a vote to accept the writing, some people read it.
Okay.
I'm not sure
So
what our bond.
so the
Okay,
question
it's
becomes, do you guys want to read into the record the entire?
If you want to read into
Yeah.
the
Vote.
record the entire vote.
Yeah, we usually
And
read the
then-
whole.
Oh, you have?
We
Okay.
read the
you
whole
would
thing,
sign
yeah.
off.
Yes.
It's a lot.
All right, so, shall I wait until you're finished, or?
Well,
Well-
and the only other thing I have to do is leave you all these wonderful bonds.
Ah,
To sign them,
Sign.
yeah.
Why don't you put those up here? I think that the best
Jill
thing,
will give them to me
Yes.
tomorrow, and I will have them couriered to,
so if we could start, maybe if you have any questions for Peggy, and then we could read them.
These copies to be signed,
yeah, they want all of it.
okay.
Yeah.
So there are
Yeah,
Lot of-
triplicates? Is it
triplicates.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
There's
and a
triplicates
lot
in here?
more than triplicates
Yeah, I
on
can
the
imagine.
bonds.
I'd suggest that we just do a signing party at the end of the, after the meeting's
Yeah.
over, so that we don't have to make the folks at home watch 20
Yeah.
minutes a day.
Yeah.
And we could either start by reading, having one of you read the
I will read it.
vote of the board, and then,
I'm the clerk.
Yep, go
Now,
for
shall
it.
we wait until Jeff is back, because he's the chairman?
it probably would be good for him to be here for that. Why don't you, if you have any questions of Peggy before we get into the reading, that might be a good time to do that.
It's pretty basic stuff, the bonds. We just rolled one of the bands in.
I was gonna say, did we roll anything in?
Yeah, what we had coming up November 12th, November 13th, and we went out and bonded all of it. So it was the water and tobacco.
Okay.
We got a pretty good premium of 248,000, I think it was. So that will pay for the expenses, and 60,000 will go to tobacco, and 125 will go to the water.
Oh, that's good then.
So we ended up
A
with
little
just
bit of something back,
3.9.
yeah.
Yeah. So we
Little
did very
incentive.
well.
The bond rating call was one of the more stressful days for me, because
Yeah.
as you can imagine, when you become the town manager in a place like Hamilton that has a AAA bond rating, the only thing you can really do is mess it up.
Right, you
And
can't go up.
So it was a very
You can only go
stressful
down.
day for me to make sure, I mean,
Yeah, we all
my
had to-
stress was
And
mitigated
it
by the.
started with no power.
Yeah,
Oh,
yes,
was that the
yeah,
day
it
we
That
didn't
was
have
the
any
day
power?
we
It
had
was
no
the day-
power,
the day
so
we
we
had
had
no
to
power,
do it
we
at
were-
the police station.
Oh, my word.
The stress was
Yeah.
mitigated, the stress was mitigated by Marissa and Peggy, and all the preparation they did for the call. They were fantastic.
she's
They were
wonderful.
stellar.
Yes.
Gotta keep
So,
Yes.
it was
Did a good
great,
job.
but,
All right, Jeff, I'm going to just read this.
Oh, great,
just
okay,
for-
thank you.
It's quite a bit, but vote of the Board of Selectmen. I, the clerk of the Board of Selectmen for the town of Hamilton, Massachusetts, the town, certify that at a meeting of the board held November 4th, 2019, of which meeting all members of the board were duly notified and at which a quorum was present, the following votes were unanimously passed, all of which appear upon the official record of the board in my custody. Voted that the sale of the $3,970,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2019 bonds of the town dated November 12th, 2019, the bonds, to Piper Jaffray and Company at the price of $4,216,948.50, and accrued interest, if any, is hereby approved and confirmed. The bonds shall be payable on November 1 of the years and in the principal amounts, and bear interest at the respective rates as follows. Shall
I think you could probably skip that
You can
part.
skip the
Okay,
table, yeah.
If they want to see
Skip
the
the table,
data, it
the
is on
table.
the front page.
Yes.
Further voted that the bonds maturing on November 1st, 2035, November 1st, 2037, and November 1st, 2039, each a term bond, shall be subject to mandatory redemption or mature as follows. The term bond due November 1st, 2035, In the year 2034, the amount will be $205,000. In the year 2035, the amount will be $145,000, and that's the final maturity. The term bond that is due November 1st, 2037, in the year 2036, the amount will be $145,000. In the year 2037, the amount is $145,000, and again, that's final maturity. Term bond due November 1st, 2039. For year 2038, the amount is $145,000. For year 2039, the amount is $145,000, and again, that's final maturity. Further voted that in connection with the marketing and sale of the bonds, the preparation and distribution of a notice of sale and preliminary official statement dated October 15th, 2019, and a final official statement dated October 30th, 2019, the official statement, each in such form as may be approved by the town treasurer, be and hereby are ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. Further voted that the bonds shall be subject to redemption at the option of the town upon such terms and conditions as are set forth in the official statement. Further voted that the town treasurer and the Board of Selectmen be, and hereby are, authorized to execute and deliver a continuing disclosure undertaking in compliance with the SEC Rule 15C2-12 in such form as may be approved by bond counsel to the town, which undertaking shall be incorporated by reference in the bonds as applicable for the benefit of the holders of the bonds from time to time. Further voted that we authorize and direct the town treasurer to establish post-issuance federal tax compliance procedures and continuing disclosure procedures in such forms as the town treasurer and bond counsel deemed sufficient, or if such procedures are currently in place, to review and update said procedures in order to monitor and maintain the tax-exempt status of the bonds and to comply with relevant securities laws. Further voted that each member of the Board of Selectmen, the town clerk, and the town treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any and all such actions and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, or other documents as may be determined by them or any of them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing votes. I further certify that the votes were taken at a meeting open to the public, that no vote was taken by secret ballot, that a notice stating the place, date, time, and agenda for the meeting, which agenda included the adoption of the above votes, was filed with the town clerk, and a copy thereof posted in a manner conspicuously visible to the public at all hours in or on the municipal building that the office of the town clerk is located, or, if applicable, in accordance with an alternative method of notice prescribed or approved by the Attorney General as set forth in 940 CMR 29.03 2B, at least 48 hours, not including Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays. Prior to the time of the meeting and remained so posted at the time of the meeting that no deliberations or decision in connection with the sale of the bonds were taken in executive session, all in accordance with GLC 30A, sections 18 through 25 as amended, dated November 4th, 2019.
I think you would.
Well done.
Now you just have to sign your life
Well,
away.
Yes.
You want a vote
Shall I
to-
do that now, or should I wait?
Yeah.
I think you
There's
need
a
a vote.
lot for you guys, you to sign as the clerk, and then there's like triplicates
Yeah.
of everything.
So should this be done at the same
I
time then,
went
just
to-
to make sure
yeah.
everything
Yeah.
gets
I
done?
signed everything that I needed to,
Perfect.
so that's all done.
Okay,
And then tomorrow I'll just courier it off Hilltop Securities.
nice.
So should we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the sale of our general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2019 bonds of the town of Hamilton dated November 12th, 2019, to Piper Jeffrey and Company at the price of $4,200,948.50 in accrued interest, if any.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Second? All right. Any further discussion?
I just have a question. The total amount not a finance person, it's going to be 4,156,000. And on this page, we have 3,970,000 that,
Premium,
That's the difference of the
Okay.
premium.
premium, and the
Okay.
premium paid down.
okay,
Tobacco, 60,000, and water, 125.
okay,
And then our fees, of course, for
Right.
sure.
everybody
Okay,
doing their job.
great, just
Who
checking.
had our bonds previously?
I don't know who bought the last bond.
Don't know. I can't
You
remember.
always go out to bid, and then you take
Yeah,
the
you always
lowest
got the bid,
bidders.
you pick
I
the
don't-
lowest bidder. I can't remember who it
that
was
We
last
haven't
time.
been out to, yeah, Marissa would probably know.
Just curious if they
I was
came
ju-
in somewhere close to where
They
we.
came in, they said this is probably the best pricing that we've gotten in a while. They were
wonderful.
really happy with how it came out. And that we got 9 bids.
Yeah,
They
that's,
thought that was pretty good.
yeah, we haven't seen this much in a while, I don't
Yeah,
think.
yeah, so we did well.
They want our money.
Yeah.
Well,
Everyone
I
wants
could
our money.
speculate as to why, but
Right.
I think it's a statement of the larger economy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
People moving into
Yeah.
more stable.
yeah.
All right. thank
Okay,
you all.
all those in favor?
Did someone second it?
It was seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, terrific.
Peggy.
Thank you, Peggy. Thanks for staying so late.
Yeah, good seeing you.
See you
Thanks,
too.
Peggy. Thanks for,
No problem. See you in the morning.
Yeah.
Right now, I'll be here before you know
Bye.
it. Good night, Peggy. Okay, next up is to declare the old voting machines as surplus property.
Are these the ones in the back of the room here?
Those are the
These are
new
new
ones.
ones,
those are the new ones. The old ones, actually, this is kind of a housekeeping matter. As part of the purchase of the new ones, we gave the old
We
ones
gave
back.
the
That
old
was
ones,
it.
right? We
But
exchanged them.
But we didn't take a formal vote to discontinue those old ones' use with the state, and that is required in order for the
Okay.
state to
Now it
sign
makes
off on
sense.
us using the new ones. So, and that, because there's an election tomorrow, we actually have to do it by tomorrow. So,
May I ask, are these optical scanners?
these ones,
The new
yes,
ones?
yes,
Okay, good.
yes.
Yep, perfect.
Yeah, these are,
They're not
the-
digital.
these are night and day compared to what we had before.
Yeah.
These are gonna be so much
As
better
long as
for
they're
everybody.
optical,
Yeah.
because that's the best way to go when you're voting.
So,
The paper trail.
Excellent. Then does Duke like them? That's the most important thing.
Well,
Oh, you did?
Was it over the voting machines?
wasn't over the voting machines, I hope.
I hope.
All right, all right.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I make a motion that we declare the old voting machines as surplus property.
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
No?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, yeah, never mind. I thought that she had specific language here, but she didn't.
No, I didn't see any.
Okay. That's fine.
Okay. Moving along here,
Yep.
Yeah.
the next item up is to vote to adopt the hazard mitigation plan.
No, they just wouldn't, the state wouldn't allow us to put the new ones on until those ones are taken off. All right, so this is our hazard mitigation plan. I think some of you may remember last year, December, January timeframe, me coming to you and saying, I'm gonna bring MAPC in because we can't get back the rest of our money from FEMA that we're entitled to because our hazard mitigation plan lapsed during the time that we were doing the project on Bridge Street. That time, they gave us until December 31st of this year to reapply to get that paid back.
And
You have in front of you what is known as a completed and approved hazard mitigation plan. This plan doesn't get approved by you, it gets adopted by you. That's
Right.
what your vote here tonight would do once you take this up. MEMA and FEMA have signed off on it. It meets all the requirements of a HMP plan by state and federal standards. It's had public vetting, and the important thing to remember is it is a plan, it's a living document, it can evolve and change if circumstances change. So just your adopting this plan tonight doesn't mean that we're held to anything. There's no negative for us to vote for this plan tonight. But the negative, if you don't, is that I can't apply for that last bit of reimbursement
You want
that we've
that.
been trying to get to balance our books. So my plea for you all is to vote to adopt this plan tonight in accordance with the vote in front of you. And if you want to make changes and amendments to it later, we can always do that, but let's not hold up the progress on getting that, getting on
May I
that
ask a
money.
couple of questions?
Okay.
May
Okay.
I make a motion before you ask your questions?
Yeah.
I make a motion that we adopt our hazard mitigation plan as presented.
So,
Second.
so there's a resolution adopting the Town of Hamilton Hazard Mitigation Plan in your packets if you want.
Do I need to read this for the motion?
I'd like to, I think we should probably just do it that way so that
Alright.
when we ask the chairman to sign it.
All right,
it,
so
looks all
I'll
official.
rescind my motion and change it here. So,
All
whereas the Town of Hamilton established a committee to prepare the Town of Hamilton Hazard Mitigation Plan 2019 update, and whereas the Town of Hamilton Hazard Mitigation Plan 2019 update contains several potential future projects to mitigate potential impacts from natural hazards in the Town of Hamilton, and whereas duly noticed public meetings were held by the Emergency Management Team and Planning Board on April 23rd, 2019 and July 23rd, 2019. Whereas the Town of Hamilton authorizes responsible departments and/or agencies to execute the responsibilities demonstrated in the plan, and now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hamilton Board of Selectmen adopts the Town of Hamilton Hazard Mitigation Plan 2019 update in accordance with Mass General Law 40, Section 4, or the charters and bylaws of the Town of Hamilton.
Second.
right. Further discussion.
Yes, I do have a couple of questions. I was wondering if there is such a thing as a region-wide hazardous event where there's a lot of widespread damage and injuries and things like that. How are we going to be guaranteed an ambulance service? Or, because we don't have one yet, I know they're working on it, but do they have any kind of mitigation for that? Say, our ambulance is located in Gloucester, and say it's a widespread, so how would we?
So ambulance emergency medical response is handled through our contract and then through the various agreements that we have to backfill that contract in times when the ambulance can't get here. The hazard mitigation plan is they used to refer to this as a pre-mitigation plan, or pre-disaster mitigation plan. I unfortunately know way too much about these. They changed the title to hazard mitigation plans, but when I first started in government work, I wrote 10 of these in other communities in the city and the state. It's a very prescribed formula. It's meant to identify the natural and man-made hazards
Yes.
that you're prone to
And I was reading that,
identify
and one of the
potential mitigation
things,
steps.
one of the steps is that we have to have our, the public safety has to be all set. In other words, we have to make sure we have the personnel and the equipment.
So the fire chief and the police chief appointed members of their departments to be a part of the planning team that helped develop the plan. So that was their, and yeah, they're working on building up our emergency medical response. We're
Okay.
aware of that, but
Good.
that isn't a matter that's specific to the hazard mitigation plan. The main purpose of the HMP is so that by identifying what we're vulnerable to.
Yes.
We can kind of check off a box when we're asking for state and federal grant monies to respond. And it puts us as eligible with FEMA to get disaster recovery
As
monies
reimbursement
after.
and grants.
reimbursement
Oh, I
and
understand
grants,
that, yes.
But also disaster.
But my question was, if something should happen and we don't have coverage, do they have, do they have something in place?
Well, we get mutual aid response from other communities through our mutual aid agreements with the other surrounding communities, so.
But my question was, if you have a
There's nothing
region-wide, say like an earthquake, or you have a massive gas explosions that occur, I mean, these are all things.
No.
And we don't have ambulance service, is there other than the other ambulances that serve other communities too, do they know that there will be one available for us, is all I'm asking? Do they know that for a fact?
I don't.
Because I know they're based in Gloucester and they have a place in Beverly, but if those places need help too, you know what I'm saying?
Right, so I think that the idea of this plan is to try to identify things that we can plan for that. So those are things that we can start to
Okay.
plan for now.
Okay.
We can talk about how we build out and create more redundancy in our emergency medical response system, so that if there's an event that keeps our contracted service from getting here,
Right.
we have backfills. I'll
Until we can
bring it
get
up
our
with-
own.
Right.
Okay.
Until-
And one thing that was really apparent as I was reading through the document was our water supply is so vulnerable too. And I was wondering if we have widespread contamination due to flooding or earthquakes, do we have a backup plan for that?
I don't, other than telling people not to drink the water or to boil water, put a boiled water order in place and ask people to buy bottled water
Okay.
to use for their potable uses. We don't have another, I mean, that's part of
Location
a
or-
location or anything right now. That's what,
So that's-
I'm
okay.
working on that.
Yeah, I know.
But we don't have one currently, no.
Let's see. And so this was only about natural disasters.
It's about identifying and kind of predict what we could do to mitigate for natural disasters. It helps kind of create a list of projects that we can use when we want to go to the FEMA or MEMA. It'll actually be used to help inform the municipal vulnerability.
I was just gonna say, will
Easy-
this tie in
easy
with
for
our
me to say.
MVP?
Yeah.
The MVP program that we just had the workshop for, which will give us a second planning document
Right.
that'll check
Both
off
of
some
these
boxes
documents
for
are gonna help
additional
us
state.
with those.
Okay, great.
And a great part
Asks.
about, and the great part about MVP is whereas with FEMA, every city and town that has an HMP plan in the country can apply for that limited amount of federal resources. The MVP program that the state has put into place has additional money that the state puts into the pot. And you have to be an MVP community to be eligible for that. So we'll have this will inform our MVP plan
Yep.
that MAPC is working on now. And once that plan gets adopted, we'll be eligible to apply for grant money to the state for
Yep.
some of those types of things.
Okay, that sounds good.
What's our cycle of this document? Like,
It's usually a 5-year plan.
5-year plan?
It needs to be updated every 5 years. And to be honest, I mean, this is one of those things that,
When's the last time we updated it?
I think it was due to be updated in 2017. And I think that was the time you were working on that project and it just got.
You're
and
right.
When you applied for the grant, got accepted
We
for the
had it.
grant, you started the grant paperwork, you started the project.
Yeah.
FEMA went right along with us and said, yeah, that's an overrun, but we agree that that's the
Right.
reason that has to go. We'll approve it, don't worry, we'll reimburse you the 75% when we come to the end, but then our plan lapsed and they
Right, and then they
weren't aware
said,
of
no
that.
thanks, right?
So, but they didn't just say no thanks, they said, if you can get your plan updated and get back to us before next December,
Right.
we'll still look back and reimburse them, so.
Retrofit kind of.
And right, and to be honest, once we got this document, and we were only waiting for your vote, Tim has already been in contact with our consultants on that project, and they've already reworked the submission to FEMA. So as soon as this document gets adopted by you, and we make it part of the record with the town clerk, we'll be sending that. to
We're
them.
off to the races, all right.
All right, so, I will accept a motion to adopt the hazard mitigation plan.
As stated in this.
That's, we've done,
Yeah, we
okay.
had that.
I
So, yeah.
seconded it, we just need to vote.
Yeah, we just need to
Okay.
vote on it.
So all those in favor?
Hi.
You betcha.
All right, excellent,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
It's kind of an interesting read for the folks at home. It kind of gives you a history of all the bad things that have happened in
Yeah.
Essex and Hamilton. I mean, I think back one of the biggest storms when I was kind of early on in town was the Mother's Day storm. Was it
Yes.
2008 or whatever, 2006,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, let's see, review human resources intermunicipal agreement.
So, yeah, I just wanted to bring this up to you. You should have had the IMA sent to you today. I don't know if it's printed in your packets, but we
is,
sent it to you today. And we had also given you the draft job description. Yeah, it is in here. The
Everything
IMA is currently with KP Law to be reviewed as to form. Because all 3 communities that are in this proposed regional effort are KP Law communities, we had all signed
that's great.
disclosure agreements noting that we all are aware that we're all represented by the same
Yeah.
attorney, and yes, he can review that document on all of our behalf, so.
Yeah.
It's being reviewed now, and hopefully will be finalized.
And I saw you had a few kind of red line or some comments
Yeah.
on this
For the other towns.
for the
Yeah.
other towns and stuff, because we don't have a personnel board.
Right, yeah, we've
And it
made some,
mentions
we've
it
made
in
some of
here.
those changes, yeah. Some of them do, some of them don't, so.
And so have the other towns, they're doing the same, are we on the same timeline
We're
for
all on the
this?
same timeline.
Okay.
Yeah. So under mass law, boards of selectmen are allowed to enter into intermunicipal agreements with other municipalities, either through their mayor, if it's a city, or their boards of selectmen. That's not something that can be given to the town manager. It has to be adopted by you.
Right.
The proposal here, and partly because it was my idea, sometimes you wonder why you have ideas, is for Hamilton to act as the
Lead party.
the lead party.
Yeah,
and
and that was
how
kind
the
of one of my
service-
follow-ups, was I knew we were working that way, I just wanted to hear you say it. Because I know there was some, I don't want to say hurt feelings, but a little bit of a rub with our inspectional services, that when we went into the agreement with Wenham, which I think it's working fine, and I'm glad we're doing it and doing the cost savings and able to expand our inspectional services, but our board was a little bit miffed that when we went to the Wenham Board of Selectmen meeting, we were just sitting there and they made all the decisions for who was hired and what the terms were and everything like that. We didn't feel very comfortable with that. So I want to make sure that with this intermunicipal agreement that we have some say in who's hiring, or at least
Yeah,
you
so-
have authority to
so
help with that
in-
process.
In this agreement, and you, by all means, I'm not asking you to take a vote on it tonight, but if you can look at it, make some recommendations or comments, I'm happy to hear them. Share them with the Finance and Advisory Committee as well to get their input. The goal is to have Hamilton be, as Rosie noted, the lead party, which would mean that we'd have the hiring authority. I do believe that we propose in here to jointly manage the resource between the town managers and town administrators of the three communities. In my mind, that means that we'd advertise the position. We would have a committee review the applicants and select people to be interviewed, and that they would be interviewed by all three of us, myself, Mitch in Rockport, and Greg in Manchester by the Sea, and the three of us would come to a joint discussion. I think that particularly when you're talking about human resources, we're going to want somebody who's got some experience, but
Yeah.
somebody who can get along with all three towns.
Right.
Our three towns are similar in many ways and very different in some ways, and we need to recognize that just because we have an agreement doesn't mean I should foist upon one of the other two parties somebody that they think is not going to be a good fit for their community. So that would be an important part of the process for us.
So we can read this?
Yeah,
and be
you don't have
prepared
to
for the
do it.
next?
Yep.
They
That's-
can't read
It's
it.
a lot.
Can't read it, no.
And you don't, I'm not asking you to, as I said, I just wanted to bring it up, field any superficial questions you may have now, but if you want to get into it, even make comments to me later on, you can, it'd be easier if you could, make comments back so I could start to make some amendments and changes, or try to consider your comments with what I get from the FinCom or what the other
Yeah.
communities might offer, and then try and get a final document for you.
Do
the
we
next time
have
we're gonna bring it up.
a tentative timeline for a hire?
We would like to be able to start advertising sooner than later so that we can potentially hire and have start by January 1st.
By
around the
January
beginning of around the beginning of the calendar year. That was the.
So we're looking at like a half a year.
So
salary
so
then.
right, well, we've got
thinking
more
f-
than that.
right.
We've already, all three communities actually have already
Budgeted.
budgeted for more than that for this year. If you'll remember, that was,
Part
this
of the budget,
position
yeah.
came up in my budget last year, my budget proposal and recommendation last year, which was approved. And we have enough money for our share of a full year, but we won't need that this year. And the initial term here is proposed to be 18 months, so that we'd have this 6 months and a whole year to work with the person
Gotcha.
and see how it works. So all three communities would be
So there's like a
committed for
probation
18
period
months.
there, and-
Yep, and it'd give us a chance to determine if the arrangement's working for all three communities.
Right, if
Maybe
they need
one-
more time in one
may-
town or another.
Maybe
and-
one town decides this isn't working for us, but the other two towns say, hey, this is working fine for us, and we actually could use more hours, so we'll, increase the amount of hours, change the split. But this just gets us all working on, in a framework that can be assessed.
I'm really happy this is finally looking like it's going to come together into fruition. And I know you
me
are as well. Because we've been talking about it a while, and I've been talking about it since I've got on the board, that we are in dire need of HR in this town. Just because of the nature of everything, I guess. It just makes it's going to make it a lot better for employees and everybody.
I mean, the fact is, state and federal laws change yearly.
Yeah.
With regard to employees, employee rights, and workplace conditions and things. And it's difficult enough to ask somebody who specializes in that field to stay up to date on it, to ask somebody who's, and all three of these communities have the same issue. We are town managers, town administrators with everything that encompasses, and HR. And
Right.
HR really is a full-time job.
Yeah.
on
Oh,
its
yeah.
own.
Yeah.
So,
It's an expertise.
so,
Yeah. And if you're dealing with
Better
HR,
served
it's
by that.
distracting you from the day-to-day, which is what we don't want.
I think it's great partnering with two new communities like this, too. I think it's wonderful.
yeah.
Surprisingly, I have a question. In terms of, like, this is this is the general policy, but what about the HR policy for each individual town? She'll be developing 3
Yeah.
HR policies?
They'll be developed, so the job description lays out that they'll be helping each community develop their own personnel bylaws. We have our own personnel bylaws, so here with Hamilton employees, they'd apply the Hamilton bylaws, personnel bylaws, and the contracts. Each community's gonna have that issue as well, so their contracts will all be different, their
Right.
personnel policies might be slightly different, but that person, he or she, will be responsible for helping us make sure those are all in compliance
Right.
with state and federal laws.
Yeah, that was kind of one of my follow-ups, is we just, in the last couple of years, we've redone all of our personnel policies and everything.
We
and
did, and
hopefully
there's
when
already
they
things in there that probably need to
Right,
be updated.
and hopefully when this
so-
person comes
Right.
on board, they can help us make sure it's up to MGL and et
So our
cetera.
goal is to have as much of that updated as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think it's a very good idea. So, interesting. Look forward to seeing how this works.
All right.
So will we, is this kind of counting as a first reading of this? And we'll look at it again at our next meeting, is that the plan?
Vote next meeting, aren't we?
I'm sure, if you guys want, I'll make sure we get it ready. I'd love to have a vote and be able to say to the other 2 towns, come on, Slackers, get with the program. I say that in jest, if Greg and
If you're
watching us at home,
watching.
I'm just teasing. But, yeah, the sooner, if you guys want to try and get me some comments, I know that the FinCom meets again on the 15th, so I'll get this to Chairman Wanger before then. He actually should have it now already because it went into the packets and he gets everything you get. So hopefully they'll have some time to discuss it at the FinCom if they have any recommendations or amendments that they want to advise us on. I'm happy to hear that input, and, you know, we'll try to have a final document ready for you to consider at the next meeting.
Great.
Sounds good.
I like the escape clause here, too.
Yes, I noticed that myself. First thing I looked at.
Well, I mean, don't, you know, we're proposing
gotta have one.
we're proposing 3 communities because financially it makes a lot of sense. But in practice, we don't know if that will be viable. It's
experiment.
It's an experiment.
I think
There's a
it's
lot of,
good.
there's a lot of work that goes into HR, and it may come out in the wash that 2 of us will say, hey, we really need this to keep going, but we need more time, and somebody's gonna have to step out and find another alternative. We'll figure that out. So, but I want some, we'd like some track record to be able to make that decision on, so.
I like it.
Okay, next up is the BOS direction on budget planning, review of draft budget guidelines and budget calendar.
So in your packets, you have a draft budget guidance document that I prepared, as well as a draft calendar. You should have both. Again, no need for decision tonight. I have got comment back already on the guidance document from Chairman Wanger, and he had an observation about the calendar and wanted me to kind of make a small amendment there as well. I'm open to your feedback so that I can assimilate all of that into finalizing those documents. I would like to be able to share this with department heads. I'd love to share it with them this week if you can give me some direction tonight or in the next couple of days, because we want to kind of get started as soon as possible. We started around this time last year, early mid-November. It seemed to work out well, and we'd like to try to stay on that pace.
Have you gotten any feedback from Marissa, our finance director, on this schedule?
She helped me develop it. She
Perfect.
was in the room, she and I went through it line by line. I don't do anything in Marissa's world that I don't try to include her in on, because it will not go well for me if
Yes.
I try that, so.
Well, that's great, that's good. So this is, what's your timeline for getting this adopted?
Well, if you vote, even if you take a vote that tentatively you're okay with it, but you may make some comments over the next day or so, I would like to have this out Wednesday or Thursday to the department heads. If that gives them a week or so to start getting their
And
their budget.
FinCom meets on the 15th.
Meets on the 15th. David has already disseminated the draft documents to the board and to the finance committee members, asked them to comment back to
Oh,
him
good.
independently, and he has assimilated. They had one minor adjustment, and I plan to make it. He thought that overall that the guidance document was well presented. He felt there was one piece about trying to hold to a 2% spending, but in the next sentence, it talked about existing contracts. He wants me to make that a little more clear, so I have to wordsmith it some, but I'm happy to do that.
And he also wants to make sure that the FinCom is
Included in
included in every.
specifically included in the
Yes,
budget, in the
'cause that's
budget
important.
process. That's, yeah, they're typically, historically, they've been involved, starting with the review of budgets in the couple weeks in December, so I'll make sure that that is clearly stated in the calendar, that would be a review with administration and finance and advisory committee folks. So that'd be me, Marissa, and the liaisons of the FinCom, as we have done in the past.
Can we tentatively
Sure.
get it started? Because I know you're on a really, really tight schedule,
I
and then
appreciate your efforts to help me.
perhaps-
Thank you so much.
perhaps we can, if we, over time, because this is kind of living too,
It's
isn't
a living
it?
document. We
Yeah.
can make amendments to it. I think that it's instructive and important for us to have some deadlines,
Where
but-
time is of the essence, I'm going to make a motion
Right.
that we adopt a draft of this document. It's the fiscal year 2021 budget preparation guidelines, knowing that there will be, it's in flux, and there may be some changes, clarifying language, and, any other edits.
Second?
Second. Further discussion?
I'm looking through it now. I apologize for the first time, and I think it's great. This is more robust than we've had in the past, and that's very encouraging to me. Am I missing it, or we typically have a Saturday session with the FinCom?
So we discussed that. We moved that to a Monday. You can move it back if you like. That's one of the things.
No,
we
that's fine.
forgot
I just,
last night.
where is it, or am I just missing it?
I don't remember meeting with
Um,
Saturday.
Yeah, we had, it was a Saturday, the 26th or something of
Yes.
January last year.
Yeah, we do like a
that.
January
I agree with
session.
that.
Yep, it's titled Presentation and Overview of Town Budget to the
Okay.
Board of
Oh, I
Selectmen and
see it now.
FinCom. And we currently have it there as 2/3/20, that's a Monday night, and that's your scheduled meeting.
Okay.
We could, I do say, or 2/1/20, because you have in the past done those sometimes on Saturdays.
Saturday.
I'll be honest, one of my concerns with that, one of the reasons I'm recommending trying to do it on a Monday night is, we're in January and February, that's snow time.
Right.
We require our department heads to be present at those meetings, and to
Right,
have
and if
them
they're-
come in
yeah.
on a Saturday after they've already been in on weekdays dealing with snow removal and
Right.
other things, I understand that, they're employees, and we can ask them that, and we have in the past, but if, to the extent that we can do this in a meeting
Yeah,
together,
that's reasonable to me. I'm okay with that.
and try not to impugn on their personal time, that would be helpful.
Yeah. That's good. And if we do have a snow event or something, it gives like Tim and et cetera time to
Right,
clear the roads and
exactly.
stuff for Monday and
Yep.
et cetera. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Sorry, I just didn't see that
No,
in there. I
no
was-
problem.
where it
And what I
was.
was going to do, just for people watching at home, I just wanted to read the third paragraph, which basically is the gist of this document we're talking about tonight in addition to the calendar. But the town manager is asking all departments and committees with budgets to begin preparing as though we are working on a level services budget. A level services budget is one that considers all proposed increases or decreases in funding as a result of inflation, equipment maintenance, ongoing equipment upgrades, and ongoing training such that the existing organization can continue to function efficiently. Any departmental requests for additional spending beyond level services will be reviewed in detail and balanced against the overall needs of the entire town operation. This is not to suggest that additional spending will not be approved, but should suggest that new spending will have to be proven as a need. So,
I like that.
it's a good policy. So, yes, has it been seconded?
I
Yes.
did.
All right, all those in favor?
Night.
Aye. Excellent.
Thank you all for your support on this.
All right, and finally tonight, on a positive note, well, almost finally, Darcy, almost. Town bonfire proposal. Rosemary, would you like to
Yes.
describe this a little bit?
Well, we've talked about some ideas about what we would like to see this event entail. Maybe a little bit of a fundraiser for the Hamilton Foundation might be nice. I have talked to, I think I mentioned this in my discussion earlier, but according to Fire Chief, we need to do it no later than January 6th So we would be proposing Saturday, late Saturday afternoon, early evening, January 4th, at the Patton Park. And those who opt to recycle their trees have the option to do that at Pingree Park, I think is
Right.
the usual
Correct.
drop off there. So we're just thinking of it as a fun event for the town, to include an opportunity for people to meet each other. Not sort of a big deal, but just for us as a fun sort of celebration of winter. And we are thinking of having maybe some refreshments wherein we can use the proceeds to make a donation to the Hamilton Foundation, which is indeed a very local and very worthy charity. They don't know it, that we're thinking about this, but they're going to come in and talk to us. But in a discussion with town manager, we thought something like that might be very nice. And so Michelle, your admin, has volunteered to help out with the project. And anybody else, maybe our town manager would also lend some time and effort. And anybody else who would like to join in on the
Like I've been
fun,
drafted.
Yeah, wow.
please.
Michelle was too, I have to say. I was there for that.
Super. So if anybody would like to participate, have ideas of what they think might be a fun activity, please do contact me at Town Hall, or certainly Town Manager, or Michelle, his admin.
And this was a nice tradition that Hamilton has enjoyed for many, many, many years, and it's just been on hiatus for past few
Yeah.
years.
Let's-
So it's kind of re-energizing it, giving it some.
Right, it's old school,
Good.
what's old is new, and I think it's always been a very cherished event. I remember when it was discontinued, there were a lot of distressed, sad people, and so we're a small town, why not do something for,
Nice.
in the spirit of a small town? So that's my spiel.
Excellent. So what's the date again?
It'll be Saturday, January 4th, and we'll make it early. We don't have a set time yet, but we're talking early so that little kids who want to come and families who want to come could come and enjoy it.
Great. Excellent.
What do you think, Sean?
I'm going to be the one naysayer, maybe.
Oh.
We discontinued it because of cost, and we're a green community, and so part of it was, it's not a very green thing to have a huge bonfire of Christmas trees, was part of the reason. The other reason was the manpower, paying for the fire department, police detail, all that kind of stuff. And the board at the time, with our new green communities kind of declaration, felt it wasn't the environmental thing to do, plus the cost was cost prohibitive for 20 minutes of fire, and plus the attendance had gone down. And I think part of the attendance had gone down because of, from what I heard, it used to be more of a gathering and refreshments and cocoa and stuff like that, and this last iteration was kind of just people gathering at dusk and setting a bonfire for half an hour. So that's my one
Yeah.
issue, is the budget and the
Sure.
environmental impact. I don't remember offhand, but it was a lot. And
Yeah,
that's why we
well, I've
discontinued it.
talked to Fire Chief, who's on board with it, and in fact, some of the volunteer firemen have said that they would volunteer their time, so I think that's kind of a nice gesture also. And as for the rowdy people, well, we'll
Yeah, I guess my bottom line concern is cost and environmental impact. I know a lot of communities have stopped doing it because of just the environmental impact of it, but for me, it's the cost and
Yeah.
the manpower.
Right, and again, the goal is to have volunteer firefighters come and donate their time. I've spoken to a couple of them who have said that it would be great training for them and it would be a great opportunity. So we would definitely work to keep the cost very minimal.
And for the fundraiser, how would you raise the funds?
Well, just a thought,
Like
to maybe
pass-
have hot chocolate, cookies, and something like that, go around and maybe get some support from local stores and ask them to contribute, and then we'd have volunteers man the little concession stand and do it that way.
Okay. Fair enough.
Does that sound, I mean, one of the purposes of talking about is to get people's input.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool.
Great, all right. Now, any other discussions, any other topics? Sorry, Darcy, I think we have a pretty full agenda for the 18th.
We got a lot of things coming up on it, but like, throw out your ideas and let's see.
Does
because we can
anybody
always-
have anything they want to add?
Yes.
Some things will always roll into future meetings, but let's get them out there and find out.
Sean?
Financial policies. I want to get
You
back
coming
on
up,
that train.
Yeah. Yep.
And also, master plan. We can talk more about that kind of when it gets closer to our budget discussions, but just kind of bringing it up again.
The whole,
Whole kit and caboodle.
Glad to hear two members of the Board of Selectmen wanting me to attack master plan, because that's something that I've identified that I want to attack in the budget process.
Yeah.
Sure.
Try and get funding for, so.
All right. Anybody else have anything?
I will have spoken to the seniors by then, and
Okay,
I'm sure I will bring back
okay.
many comments from them. Happy comments,
Yeah, I
I'm
was going to say, I
sure.
think they're going to be happy.
Yeah, I think so
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
It's great, it's great.
Are there any follow-ups that have slipped through the cracks?
Oh, it's on there, don't worry. And we would originally plan to do that tonight, but because of how big the agenda got here, I didn't want to keep you folks all night long, but it's up to you. It's always when we do it, but I
No, I mean, were there any follow-ups that we could add, follow-ups from the past that we could add to a future agenda?
yeah, my finishing off my town manager evaluation. We were supposed to
Yeah,
have the
that's
second
one
part
of
of
them,
that. That's one of the things that's on there that got bumped for this meeting, and we have a trash discussion to
Oh,
have.
yes, I was
That's
thinking of
right.
that earlier
We
today.
may,
Thank
we may
you.
be, at either the next meeting or at the latest, the first meeting in December, we'll be trying to set the tax rate. So there's, different things that Board of Assessors usually comes in this time of year. So we
Right.
have to get all those things lined up, and I'm
We've
just
got
trying to-
water rate, tax rate.
Yeah.
Water rate is a meeting that we have to determine when that's gonna happen as well. And we need to do that before the budget planning process, because
Yeah, it's-
our water department budget's gonna need
Need some help.
attention.
Infusions?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Don't forget to stay and
Oh,
sign.
yes.
Yes.
May I make a motion?
Yes, Darcy. That'd be
To
good.
adjourn.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Now we get busy
Oh,
signing.
Since there is no, since Town Hall is closed on Monday, the 11th for Veterans Day,
Yeah.
Jeff's agenda planning will have to be Tuesday,
Tuesday.
the 12th, with Rosie just had, and you had Darcy
Yeah.
before that, so it's either Bill or Sean, I think, is up in the rotation.
Are you able to do that, Sean? Do you know?
When?